Dricus du Plessis, better known to MMA fans as DDP, now finds himself in one of the most challenging moments of his career. Heading into UFC 319, the South African fighter entered as the reigning middleweight champion, carrying momentum and high expectations. However, what unfolded that night was a nightmare he could not escape. For 25 grueling minutes, du Plessis was dominated by Khamzat Chimaev, who imposed his game plan from start to finish in a fight that left fans and analysts stunned. Although du Plessis showed flashes of danger in brief exchanges, those moments were scarce. For the majority of the fight, he was grounded, smothered, and neutralized by Chimaev's suffocating grappling. DDP struggled to mount any meaningful offense, and while some critics claimed that Chimaev's strategy was conservative, there was no questioning the dominance. Chimaev didn't take unnecessary risks, but he didn't need to. He controlled every round, dismantled DDP's weapons, and left the fight looking far more one-sided than expected. This defeat has sparked the question, where does du Plessis go from here? His team remains optimistic, believing the loss is something he can recover from. They argue that with 3 to 4 months of dedicated wrestling training, he could make significant improvements to his ground defense and overall grappling. With the right adjustments and a couple of victories against top contenders, du Plessis could potentially climb back into the title picture. In their view, he may only be 2 wins away from another shot at UFC Gold, depending on how the division unfolds. However, the real complication lies in whether Chima continues to reign over the middleweight division. If he remains champion, du Plessis may be stuck in a difficult deadlock. Former UFC star Quinton "Rampage" Jackson was blunt in his assessment, saying DDP should not even mention the word rematch. According to Rampage, du Plessis was destroyed and may need to consider a different weight class, but dropping back down to welterweight seems unrealistic. Between 2015 and 2018, du Plessis competed at 170 pounds, but since then he has added significant muscle mass to compete at middleweight. A return to welterweight would likely drain his body, affect his health, and hinder his performance. This leaves DDP with one real path forward: remain at middleweight, rebuild his wrestling fundamentals, and work his way back up. If he can score decisive wins over ranked contenders, he may force the UFC to give him another title opportunity. Whether he can ultimately solve Chimaev's puzzle is another story. One thing is clear: every move du Plessis makes from this point will define the rest of his career. Moving to another news, Chael Sonnen has once again stirred the pot in the MMA world, this time directing criticism toward reigning UFC lightweight champion Ilia Tapuria. The controversy erupted after comments from rising contender Arman Tsarukyan, which prompted Sonnen to release a video suggesting that Tapuria may be strategically avoiding certain high-risk matchups. The outspoken analyst argued that Tapuria's recent announcement that he does not plan to return to the octagon until January or February of next year raises serious questions about his willingness to defend the title against top contenders. According to Sonnen, the timing of Tapuria's decision has fueled speculation among fans and analysts alike. With the lightweight division stacked with hungry challengers, Sonnen questioned whether this delay is a tactical move to preserve the belt or a sign that Tapuria isn't prepared to face the division's elite. Arman Tsarukyan himself confirmed that he will not be fighting Tapuria next, narrowing down the list of likely challengers. The names most frequently mentioned are Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, both of whom would generate massive fan interest and shake up the division. Sonnen, however, did not hold back in his criticism. He openly questioned the legitimacy of keeping Tapuria at the top of the rankings if he is unwilling to compete. You're #1 in the world, pound for pound, but you're saying you can't fight until next year. What am I supposed to take from that? Sonnen argued. He went further, suggesting that the UFC may even need to consider introducing an interim championship to keep the lightweight division moving. This has split the MMA community down the middle. Supporters of Tapuria argue that champions are entitled to recovery time, especially after grueling training camps and high-pressure title fights. They believe he is simply being smart, ensuring that when he returns, he is fully prepared for the massive fights ahead. On the other side, critics echo Sonnen's sentiment: if you are the champion, you must always be ready to defend your belt, regardless of the circumstances. The UFC lightweight division is one of the most competitive landscapes in the sport, and every delay creates uncertainty. With names like Zarukian, Pimblet, and Gaethje circling around the title picture, the promotion is under pressure to clarify the path forward. Whether the UFC supports Tapuria's timeline or moves toward an interim title, one thing is certain: the next announcement will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of the division. Another major headline: Khamzat Chimaev continues to dominate headlines in the MMA world, not only as the reigning UFC middleweight champion, but also as one of the most talked about figures in combat sports. Whether it's his constant stream of social media activity, his candid interviews, or behind-the-scenes training stories, Chimaev always finds a way to keep fans buzzing. This time, new revelations from sparring sessions have surfaced, painting a vivid picture of just how overwhelming his skills truly are. According to fellow middleweight contender Caio Borralho, Chimaev's recent sparring with top-ranked fighter Nassourdine Imavov was nothing short of a clinic. Borralho revealed that Chimaev didn't just edge out a few exchanges, he dominated completely, reportedly finishing Imavov 6 or 7 times in only a few rounds. For context, Imavov is widely regarded as one of the most polished strikers in the division, a fighter known for his technical precision and calm composure. To hear that he was systematically shut down and repeatedly submitted speaks volumes about the gap between Chimaev and even the upper echelon of middleweight talent. Borralho went further, suggesting that Imavov likely has no real desire to face Chimaev in an official bout. In his view, the sparring was such a one-sided affair that Imavov already knows how the fight would unfold if they ever met under the lights. While harsh, it highlights one of Chimaev's most dangerous weapons, the mental edge. He is not only breaking fighters inside the cage, but also dismantling their confidence long before the opening bell. Adding some humor to the story, footage also emerged of Borralho himself being submitted by Chimaev during training. To his credit, Borralho laughed it off, admitting that perhaps he isn't in the best position to criticize others, given that he too was quickly dispatched. Yet his testimony reinforces a growing belief: Chimaev is simply operating on another level compared to the rest of the division. Imavov, for his part, has never denied Chimaev's abilities. In past interviews, he has acknowledged Chimaev's relentless pressure, raw strength, and unpredictable style. He described him as the kind of opponent who suffocates you, never allowing a fighter to find their rhythm. Those words now carry even more weight in light of Borralho's account. Interestingly, Imavov and Borralho are scheduled to face each other on September 6th in Paris in a bout widely considered a potential title eliminator. The winner could earn a shot at Chimaev's middleweight crown. However, the question lingers: after being dominated in sparring, would Imavov truly want that fight? Stepping into the cage against a man who has already beaten you multiple times in training is not just a physical challenge, but a psychological mountain. At the end of the day, the stories emerging from training only add to Chimaev's growing legend. Behind closed doors or under the bright lights, he continues to look like one of the most dangerous men in the sport, and perhaps the most dominant force in the middleweight division today. Let's switch gear to another news. Former UFC champion Rampage Jackson has once again shared his brutally honest opinion about Dricus du Plessis' future in the middleweight division, and his words were as unfiltered as ever. According to Rampage, du Plessis should not even be thinking about a rematch with Khamzat Chimaev at this stage. In his view, pursuing that fight again would be nothing more than a waste of time, and could even further damage du Plessis' reputation. As Rampage bluntly put it, "You just got destroyed." Jackson emphasized that fighters sometimes need to face reality, and in this case, reality dictates that du Plessis is simply not in a position to challenge Chimaev again anytime soon. He went a step further by suggesting that, with all due respect, du Plessis might even need to consider dropping down to a different weight class. In his eyes, the middleweight division is now dominated by a dangerous force like Chimaev, leaving du Plessis stuck in no man's land if he insists on staying the same course. The challenge, however, lies in du Plessis' physical frame. At this stage of his career, he is far too big to make the cut to welterweight without serious consequences. Years of building his body into a true middleweight frame make that transition nearly impossible. Rampage noted that forcing such a drastic weight cut could affect du Plessis' cardio, strength, and overall health. History has shown that fighters who try to make dramatic changes late in their careers often struggle to maintain peak performance, and Du Plessis knows this better than most. This leaves him with only one realistic path forward: regrouping, sharpening his skill set, and climbing back up the middleweight ladder. It will not be an easy journey. The division remains stacked with elite competitors such as Sean Strickland, Jared Cannonier, and others who continue to hover near the top of the rankings. To re-establish himself as a legitimate contender, Du Plessis must put in the work, rebuild momentum, and earn another opportunity the hard way. Rampage's comments have sparked intense debate among MMA fans. Some argue that Du Plessis still has the toughness and resilience to bounce back stronger than ever, while others agree that he may be trapped in a division now ruled by monsters like Chimaev. Regardless, the spotlight is firmly on Du Plessis, and the MMA community is eagerly watching to see how he responds to this new chapter in his career. Leon Edwards has officially confirmed that he is targeting a return to the octagon this November, and the buzz surrounding his comeback is already building. The British welterweight champion has expressed a clear desire to compete on one of the grandest stages in combat sports, Madison Square Garden. What makes this return even more intriguing is that Edwards wants to share the card with the highly anticipated showdown between Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev, a fight that already has the MMA world on edge. As for Edwards' opponent, nothing has been finalized yet, but several exciting names are already being discussed. One of the frontrunners is Joaquin Buckley, whose explosive style and aggressive pace could create fireworks inside the cage. Another strong possibility is Michael Morales, the undefeated rising contender who has been making waves in the division with his relentless pressure and youthful confidence. Carlos Prates, who recently picked up a huge victory over Jeff Neal, wasted no time in calling out Edwards, publicly demanding the opportunity to test himself against one of the division's elite. And then there's the potential blockbuster showdown with fellow UK star Ian Gary, a fight that would not only electrify British MMA fans but also capture the attention of a global audience. What makes Edwards' return particularly compelling is the mindset he brings with him. Despite setbacks and challenges in recent months, he has admitted that his motivation is stronger than ever. Rather than letting adversity derail his momentum, Edwards is using it as fuel to come back sharper, hungrier, and more determined to reclaim his place among the division's top contenders. Fans are eager to see whether this November bout will serve as the turning point that re-establishes him as a legitimate threat in the championship picture. When asked about his thoughts on the Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev matchup, Edwards gave an honest assessment. He acknowledged the difficulty in predicting the outcome. On one hand, Della Maddalena is the bigger man and has proven his ability to scramble and compete with elite grapplers. On the other, Makhachev's world-class wrestling and suffocating pressure have been nearly impossible for opponents to handle. Edwards summed it up by saying this is one of those rare fights where anything could happen. With Leon Edwards' highly anticipated comeback, Islam Makhachev's pursuit of super fights, and the drama surrounding names like Ilia Tapuria, Dricus du Plessis, and Khamzat Chimaev, the final months of the year promise to be absolutely explosive for MMA fans worldwide. During a recent press conference in Russia, Islam Makhachev was asked directly about the possibility of facing Khamzat Chimaev. As expected, the reigning lightweight champion responded with his usual calm and composed demeanor. Rather than fueling any unnecessary drama or engaging in trash talk, Islam kept his words measured. He made it clear that he does not want any conflict with Khamzat or his people, yet at the same time, he didn't entirely shut the door on the idea of a future clash. With a short but powerful response, "We will see," Islam left the MMA world buzzing. That simple statement was enough to ignite speculation among fans and analysts alike. The idea of two dominant fighters from Dagestan, both carrying massive followings and undefeated reputations, stepping into the octagon against one another is a scenario that immediately captured global attention. Even though Islam tried to downplay it, the possibility of Islam versus Khamzat has now become one of the hottest topics in the MMA community. Adding further fuel to the conversation, Islam took the opportunity to praise Chimaev's recent performance. He specifically highlighted Khamzat's dominant victory over Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319, acknowledging his fellow countryman's strength, composure, and overall skills inside the cage. It was a classy gesture from Islam, a reminder that while fans may crave a rivalry, there is no bad blood between the two Dagestani stars. At the same time, Islam made one thing very clear: he is not looking for that fight in the immediate future. His focus lies elsewhere. What excites him most at this stage of his career is the idea of a super fight against Tapuria at lightweight. That single revelation shifted the entire conversation. Suddenly, the MMA world began buzzing about what could potentially be one of the biggest fights in the sport's history. A matchup between Islam Makhachev and Tapuria carries enormous significance. Both fighters are undefeated champions, both are in their prime, and both have dominated their respective divisions with a blend of skill, confidence, and finishing ability. Tapuria's rapid rise at featherweight has been nothing short of spectacular, while Islam has established himself as one of the most complete lightweights in UFC history, combining world-class grappling with increasingly sharp striking. A clash between these two would not be just another fight, it would be an era-defining showdown. The stakes, the build-up, and the legacy on the line would place it among the biggest super fights of all time if the UFC can make it happen.